For live edition of Surviving the Survivor, What Happened to Never Again, Never Forget. Very profound title. I want to dedicate this episode to a 96-year-old Holocaust survivor, Boris Romanchenko. You see the photo from there. He was killed Friday by a Russian strike on the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. Guy makes it 96 years, goes through Buchenwald, and then gets killed by Russian artillery. His death was confirmed by the Buchenwald concentration camp Memorial Institute in a series of tweets. I'm joined now by my beautiful, lovely, wonderfully introspective mother, Carmella. What do you think of this dedication? This gentleman lives for 96 years. He survives one of the nastiest concentration camps ever on planet Earth, Buchenwald. And then he gets killed at 96 in Kharkiv by Russian artillery. Can you make sense of that? Can you wrap your head around it?
I always tell you this life is tough and things happen that are horrible. So
And that's it?
that's it.
There's nothing else to make sense. Is that a defense mechanism where you don't go deep into it? You just chalk it up to life is difficult?
I go very deep into it, but I know many survivors who died like 5 years after they survived.
I know a survivor, my friend Matt Broad's grandfather, Papa Henry.
He survived, was hit by a car.
He bicycled through China, makes it through the entire war, and then is at his cottage house in northern Michigan, gets hit by a car and killed. Unbelievable.
I don't know who, maybe the irony is that he might have been liberated by the Russians. I don't know who liberated him and then killed him.
So, Karm, I'd like to have a little levity, even though this is a very heavy topic. We're discussing war, just so the audience knows I'm battling a little war of my own right now.
Oh my God, we are not going there today, 100%.
100% not going there, but
no.
My lovely wife, Ilyana, who's watching, shout out to her, and my beautiful daughter, Vita, gave me a stomach bug. So we're going to do our best to trudge through this and get to where we need to be. Karm, you are a child survivor. We've talked about your history in the past. You were hidden in an all-boys school
with
nuns in Yugoslavia. And then, after about 8 months or so, you were...
Wrong.
Correct me.
It wasn't Yugoslavia. At that time, the Germans invaded and worked with the Hungarian. It was Hungary at that time.
And we're seeing pictures of it. So you were in this country, Hungary here, which
Hungary,
borders Yugoslavia.
I was born in Yugoslavia and the same town became Hungary. But let's get going.
Yeah. So my question is, so how long did you spend in the Catholic school for boys? How long were you there?
It's a nunnery.
A nunnery. How long were
you? June 16th till about the end of December.
Okay, June 16th.
So about approximately 6 months I was with the nuns.
6 months. And up until recently, we had a picture of the nun in our home, but we've since moved, and you were sending her money. So that was
I never sent her money. My mother remained in touch with her. I was a child when she passed away. She was a Croat. But
we had a photo of her.
I have to tell you something.
Yeah.
My story changes because of
you told me
Boris and Oksana. I tell you why my story changes. Because finally, I did not go only on the basis of my own memory, but I Googled what happened after the nunnery.
So that is what I wanted to get to. So you survived the nunnery.
Don't get stuck in the nunnery.
And you reunite. Your mother misses you desperately. You reunite in Budapest, as they say.
My mother put me in the nunnery when we were escaping. The morning they took my father and the rest of my family to Auschwitz. And then she missed me so much. She went with false documents to Budapest, and she missed me so much that she bribed somebody with presents, and they took me up the 2-hour train ride from Subotica, where I'm from, to Budapest. And then the parallels with what is going on in Kyiv and all the other places in the Ukraine, there are parallels now, because she just, unbeknownst to her, a few days later, the bombardment of Budapest started. And because of today's interview, I
We're going to be
Googled.
speaking to a couple from Kyiv momentarily that's been hiding in their laundry room for the last bunch of weeks. It's Boris and Oksana Sabada who are coming up. That's who Karmella is referring to. Karmella, these images that you're seeing, is it reminiscent of what you went through when the bombardment happened in Budapest?
Not only are I have I was only 5 and a half. I was a precocious child, but this part I remember vividly. And what happened is that I just read on Google, and everybody can read on Google. There is a thing, the siege of Budapest. It was 50 days, 50 days, and 80% of the buildings were destroyed during that time. And the fight was between the Soviet army and the Nazis, the Germans, and the Hungarians who cooperated with the Nazis. And I can go into detail, but I don't have to.
Get into detail. So some of this stuff is really quite disturbing. At one point, things got so bad that your mother, who was kind of in a way, a meek person later in life, would have to run out and slice off horses who were killed for food.
And you know what? On Google, it's written that they were eating dead horses, and they were even killing horses in the street to eat, because the transportation was not by car at that time in Budapest. Most of the transportation was in horse buggies, and it was snowing, and the horses were hit by shrapnel and died, and they were lying in the snow, in the dirty gray snow, as I remember it. And people would go with knives, including my own mother, and they would cut pieces of the meat out from the horse, bring home and cook it, and we ate it. There was people were dying from hunger.
And I was just reading or listening, I should say, on the way into the podcast. Very similar things are happening now in Mariupol, which has been absolutely decimated. And there's a lot of issues.
Mariupol, even more than 80% of the buildings were destroyed.
And
it's a graveyard of all the buildings and all the people.
It is, but they're running out of food supply, and so it is. There's comparisons to be made there. Now, I want to get your take. There are a lot of analogies between the Holocaust and what we're seeing in Ukraine, and what I know you have a pointed position on this. What is your thought about these comparisons?
I am very willing to compare the 50-day siege of Budapest, which was terminated on the 13th of February of 1945, and what is going on in the Ukraine. I'm really disturbed by it. I must say that I am really upset by it because I lived through it. And I see that similarity very strongly. We had to go down to the basement of these big apartment buildings, but the only difference was that we were hiding. We couldn't reveal our identity to the other tenants because we were Jewish, and we were with false documents, and we were hiding in the building.
Did you know your false name in case someone said, "What is your name, young girl"?
Yes, I knew my false
What
name,
was it?
and I knew all the Christian prayers.
What was your false name?
Anna.
And what did you have a last name?
Last name I don't think I had.
You don't.
I don't know the last name.
So if a neighbor said, "What is your?"
But my mother was called Auntie Aranka. I had to use a different name, and we were in the basement. And I can describe to you the night of the liberation, quote, because we considered it liberation. And I am going to say something that our Ukrainian friends will be shocked, because I was totally shocked. And again, you have to Google this. We were liberated. The Soviet Union, Ukraine at that time was part of the Soviet Union. And believe it or not, the people who liberated us were the second and third Ukrainian front. When I read that, I literally I was in shock, because I didn't even realize that the Ukrainians liberated
I
us.
detect almost a tear welling up in those eyes,
I
those
don't-
hardened eyes of yours. But
Hard.
but that's quite the. I don't
That's
know.
like all goes back in a circle.
Yes.
Compare it, Ukraine to the Holocaust is impossible. I tell you why.
Why?
Because when it happened to the Jews, nobody opened their borders and nobody greeted them with love and caring and so forth. Maybe a few righteous Gentiles here and there, but most of the people were not doing that. And I find this 3.5 million people left already in Ukraine, among them 1.5 million children.
Right. So there's also, I mean, there's a huge disparity in the numbers.
No, but the point is that there were 1,500,000 children, Jewish children, murdered in the genocide. So I'm not comparing that aspect at all. They are non-comparables. But I'm comparing this horrible state of being in a building and you never know when a bomb will fall on you or a shelling will start, or you go out to try to find food and then there is an air raid, and will you get back to your safe place in time? And this goes on and on and on and on.
How long were you in Budapest in hiding?
Well, the 50 days of
you were there for the whole 50 days.
Until the night of the liberation. And I call it liberation.
Shout out to Dave Joseph, who's leaving us a live comment that more people need to be hearing these stories, Karm. So you're popular, and these are important stories to tell. So thank you, Dave. You were there for the 50 days. I did not know that, but just
I did not know it was 50 days. I found out in the Google that it was the most bloody, longest siege
outside of.
And I'm not going to entertain people with the gory details, but what happened is that my mother was a little bit crazy, and she would take me with her when she went out to look for food, because she was afraid to leave me behind, that something will happen to me while I was away. So I witnessed some scenes on the streets that were like pretty shocking, like snipers, like a couple walking on a bridge, and the wife and the husband, and suddenly the husband collapsed. A sniper shot the husband.
Now I'm almost feeling guilty because I give you a lot of heat, Karm. Maybe you've got a little PTSD from all this in your life, which is why you screech at me so much. But
I told you already, I screech at you because I love you.
Do you remember the actual day of the liberation?
I remember it as if it were today.
What happened? Walk us through it.
And I'm very open about things I remember and things I don't remember, because I hate when people make up stories. I hate that. We were in this basement. The apartment buildings are usually like 5 or 6 story high, but long. Like on the courtyard, there are terraces, and there is a huge basement, of course, unfinished basement, like a real ugly basement. And everybody brought down a bed, and we were permitted to have 4 people in one bed. So we each had a bed, and every afternoon before the bombardment started, for some reason they were at night, mostly the snipers and the so forth were during the day, but we would go down there, and then we heard the explosions, and then suddenly these soldiers barged in. Okay, they have been fighting already for 5 years. They didn't get like a tour of duty like the Israeli soldiers went to Iraq and then came back after I don't know how many months, and then they had the second deployment after one. No, here everybody fought forever.
And what I understand is they were raping and murdering a lot of the women. Is that right? But you were saved because your mother spoke a Slavic language?
Yes, we spoke Serbo-Croatian. And my mother went over to the soldiers and started to talk to them in Serbo-Croatian. And they told them that we were refugees, that we were persecuted. And the soldiers were very nice to us. And I wish I could read you out loud what is written in the Google, because I just read it today. Finally, I got to the point of reading it, and it said there that the soldiers were very nice to children. They raped the mothers, murdered the fathers. We heard shots. We heard shots in the next room. They collected the men, and they put them in the next room, and they shot them to death. But the children, they were very nice to.
Karm, on that lovely note, we're going to move on to some of the latest headlines going on in Ukraine. Thank you for sharing your story. Just today, the U.S. is officially recognizing Russia's aggression as a war crime, war crimes, plural. Russia's push to capture the besieged Ukrainian port city of Mariupol now includes long-range shelling from naval ships in the Sea of Azov. President Biden and other Western leaders are prepared to announce new economic sanctions on Russia. As you know, he's in Belgium right now for talks. Russian Nobel Peace Prize winner Dmitry Muratov is going to auction off his Peace Prize medal to raise money for Ukrainian refugees. That's a big move right there.
It's symbolic.
It is symbolic. And a top Ukrainian boxer who I love, two-time Olympic gold medalist Vasily Lomachenko, turned down a title match abroad so he could stay with his family and defend Ukraine, while Russian chess master Sergei Karjakin was suspended over his comments about the war in Ukraine. These Ukrainian fighters, they're some of the best fighters in the world. You know, I'm a huge fight fan, Karm. Vitaly Klitschko is the mayor of Kyiv. And speaking of Kyiv, we are now joined and have the great honor of being joined by Oksana and Boris Sabada. They are in Kyiv, Ukraine. You're looking at photos of them right there. A beautiful couple, a young couple. She's 31, he is 32. I met Oksana through my other day job. We were put in touch. She was teaching English to pilots, and ironically, her husband is a pilot. It's a good place to meet husbands, I guess. Her husband is a Boeing 737 captain, and that's how they met. And I had them on the news talking about their experiences over the last bunch of weeks since the war broke out. When we talked, I think we were going into week 3, and now we're probably in week 4.
I think we are almost at the end of week 4.
Oksana,
right, end of week 4.
End of week. Boris and Oksana, how are you holding up?
Thank you for asking. It's been relatively safe here, so we just have these sirens waiting us to go into hiding. And
yesterday, Oksana said yesterday there was a lot of when I did the interview with Oksana, her cell phone actually went off mid-interview. You said that you were getting a lot of alerts yesterday, Oksana?
Yeah, right.
And
yesterday and today morning.
Do you have any do we know why?
No, I have no idea just why.
So basically this siren went off because
something flies. They have the identification that something was launched from the territory of either Belarus or maybe the sea territory, and something is flying in their space, and so they launch it. It goes off, but we don't know exactly whether it is in a plane or a missile or something.
I want to point out to the audience that you're actually in your laundry room right now. There's a rule in Ukraine that you need to be surrounded by 3 walls in case of any incoming artillery. So you've really been living in that tiny little room for weeks now, right?
Yeah, Oksana actually has been sleeping in this room every night, but I'm getting a little bit too tired of this. So occasionally I go not to my regular bed, but just to another room to rest a little bit more. But when the sirens went off, I go here as well.
And how are you still able to go out and run to the store to get some supplies? And how is the food supply chain? I know last time we talked, you're having trouble getting things like lactose-free milk, which Americans would, take for granted. You're having trouble getting cat food. Are your cats okay? Are you able to get milk and water?
Do you want to ask this? Answer it? Yeah.
Actually, we went yesterday. We had just another long curfew, like longer one for 24 hours. It was imposed. We don't know why. But before that, we went to the shop. And yes, we have enough food and water, and we actually have cared about the cat food, so we have enough today. I calculated the stock, so yeah, it's more or less fine. I don't think that we have the assortment of food is like very rich as it used to be.
It's limited, amount, because we don't have any vegetables, so it's very, very strict amount of like potatoes and some cabbages. That's it.
Tomatoes.
Yeah. And a very limited dairy products, so no milk. I didn't see any milk.
Is there any kind of increased worry that these supplies are going to run out, and what do you do? I remember when I talked to you, I said, "Oh, I'll send you some cat food," and then I realized it's hard to get a DHL driver to drive around Kyiv and drop stuff off. But are you worried that these supplies are going to run out?
Well, I think we must be worried when the actual fights are in our town. So when these strikes come to the city, so the city becomes like isolated from the rest of
like
the
sieged.
So
well, right now, your biggest concern is that your building shouldn't be hit. How tall is your building?
Our building is like 20 stories high.
Mm-hmm.
And you are on 8th floor or what?
On the 2nd floor.
On the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
That's probably better to be on the 2nd floor. Do me a favor, walk me, Oksana or Boris, whoever wants to. Tell me what your day is like. Because Oksana, last time I talked to you, you also said that you literally weren't sleeping at all. Like you were basically up around the clock. But what is if you do sleep, what time do you get up, and what do you do all day, and how do you get that function?
Well, when we were quite stressed before, when the war started, we didn't sleep much, but now we sleep more or less fine. When we wake up, we just go into our phones and check the regular news to understand, to know if the fight is near us or like it's far away. So to understand what should we do. Should we pack our things and leave, or can we stay for another day here?
Now, if you would leave, where would you go?
My parents live in the center of Ukraine, the city called Kropivnitsky. It's 300 kilometers to the south of Kyiv. And if something goes bad in here, if we can stay here, if we don't have any water running or some things like that, electricity, we will pack our things and leave there.
But what about just logistically about getting in a car and driving? Is it safe to do that if you had to leave?
Well, it's safe now only if you go south. Because if you try to go west, for example, to Lviv and Poland, actually the route that takes usually 8 hours, right now it will take you like 5 days maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because of the refugees?
Yes, the refugees and our friends say they went to Lviv. They said that there are lots of abandoned cars along the route, broken cars, damaged cars. So,
but wait a second. 300 kilometers to the south of you. You would go 300 kilometers to the south. But if you go too many kilometers to the south, you end up in a war zone also.
Yeah,
yes,
correct.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right.
So what makes you think, I'm trying to see how you're thinking of surviving. What makes you think that will be safe?
Well, we don't know.
It could be just a temporary solution. Then because you can go like southbound, and then you can go west. Because now it's like really, really difficult to go directly west because of, like Boris have just said, a lot of cars are abandoned due to different reasons. They just petrol discontinued or something like that. Petrol stations, like maybe they were empty, or we don't know. And there are a lot of cars, and people like drive for 5 days because of the checkpoints and things like that. Your identity is being like checked all the time, every like 50 or I don't know how many kilometers.
By your people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I spoke yesterday with a woman named Carla Hoyle. She's with the World Central Kitchen. She works with Jose Andres. And she was saying that the number of refugees on the Polish border, the World Central Kitchen is feeding 125,000 people a day, and about 15,000 on the Polish border. But she was saying that in all this horror that she's seeing some of the good in humanity. There have been some good, some uplifting stories despite all the atrocities. One of them, Karm, I don't know if you heard about this. This was in the Washington Post. Talks about how a fleet of white vans pulled up to central Kyiv in darkness just after 9 p.m. the other day. The passengers were bleary-eyed, clutching their luggage, their pets, their young children. They had survived 2 weeks in catastrophic conditions in Chernihiv, and they were rescued by the Brodsky Synagogue. They sent these buses there to pick them up and were met by Rabbi Moshe Osman, who said that the people who he had picked up had not eaten for 3 days. So it is kind of a testament to human beings that even in the worst of crises,
but that's
up.
Beautiful. But we will have to worry about their survival now. So, that's what I'm worried about.
Boris, are you surprised? I just heard today that the casualties, and it's hard to Russian casualties, I'm talking right now, are estimated to be close to 15,000. Do you think the Russians ever thought they would get the fight that they're getting from the Ukrainians?
No, I think they didn't, because the amount of propaganda that Russian people is running out in the world, they believed this propaganda itself, themselves. So they just delusional. That's the word.
Delusional.
Do you think Putin, and I don't mean this facetiously, do you think he's lost his mind? I was actually listening to a podcast about this with a former CIA covert op. He says that Putin, this is his history, is this kind of genocide, going after innocent victims, and that there's really no surprise here. So do you think this is all calculated, or do you think he's kind of just lost his noggin at this point?
I think just he lost his mind. So when the Soviet Union broke apart, the main agenda since the day was to brought this USSR back together. So, and that's what is he doing. That was he doing. So he invaded Georgia. He invaded like Moldova. He tried to assemble this back. Yeah.
But at least the American, what the Americans are saying here is that he miscalculated, that he made a major, when this whole thing had started, they said in 2 days he will run over 3 days.
In Kyiv, he would just run right through Kyiv.
Run right through Kyiv. And now, and the Russian army is the third strongest army in the world. That's what they said. Did you know that? There was nobody says that anymore. No,
sorry.
What?
Sorry. They considered themselves to be the second army, like the second strongest army, not even the third. But again, that's their propaganda. They were like talking about.
But the world. You know the story of the emperor's clothes. You know the story. The emperor had no clothes, but he was naked, and he made all his subjects say that his clothes are beautiful.
Yes, they're right.
You remember that story? So that was what happened. You know that they said that, and then finally a child yells, "The emperor is naked!" And now all of us are yelling, "The emperor is naked!" You know, we all realize that. But in the meantime, I still feel that it's not over. And I don't know, what will happen to Putin when he's cornered like this. What will he do next when he's cornered like this? I'm sure you talk to friends and you think about this. How do you think this could wind down and calm down and finish?
Well, my guess is that Putin right now is out of options, actually. So basically, there are two fronts now: Ukrainian front, which is the fight in here on our land, and the second front is economical front, which are the sanctions brought by United States and Europe to fight this regime. And I think that these sanctions are very, very potent. So maybe in a month or so, this regime will just crash by itself. That's my guess.
You see him, he has these meetings, there's photos of these meetings, and he's literally at a 80-foot table and he's 40 feet away. I think he's starting, people are saying he's getting paranoid. He's got someone tasting his food for him now. His paranoia is definitely at a all-time high. But back to what we were talking about earlier. So you said you wake up in the morning, and as a news guy, I'm interested in this, and you look at your phones first thing. Where are you getting your news? Are the Ukrainian news agencies still able to report? Have the Russians bombed any of the Ukrainian television stations? Are you getting your news from CNN? Where do you look to get your information?
No, we are subscribed to our channels like
on Twitter.
Not Twitter, but
Instagram.
Our armed forces have a channel of some sort, like official
Facebook page,
official
like
information, and we reading this news,
And Oksana, how's your mom doing? She was near Kharkiv, but she's in the occupied territory, right? How are you still able to speak with her?
Yeah, thanks God we have the direct communication on the phone, and she has the internet, and like everything is fine. Yeah, she's scared a bit, but thanks God everything. She's alive and she has the food and things, so everything is fine.
Do you have friends who are in Mariupol? Do you know people there?
No, we don't have.
No. When you see those images, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Well, it's devastating. This is his strategy, Putin's strategy. He cannot fight us with a direct fight. He knows that he will lose to our forces, and his tactics is to bomb civilians and destroy the cities. So like now, 7 cities have been destroyed: Kharkiv, Chernihiv, almost, Sumy, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Mariupol. So basically he just destroying the east of Ukraine because he cannot get the cities, so if he cannot get this, so in his mind he will just destroy it and no one gets it. So
we just got a comment from ISOFit. Thank you for this. She says, thankfully Kyiv has Ukrainian army protection, so shops are supplied for now. Other cities, Russian troops are looting people's homes and destroying shops, which is an excellent point. Carm and I were listening to some news on the way in, and they were speaking to General Spider Marks, who's a well-known, now he's a pundit, TV pundit, but a big-time general in the United States military. And he said that Putin completely miscalculated this entire scenario. And one of the things is they're way off logistically. So the Russian army is not prepared. They are getting frostbite. They don't have the proper clothing. they don't have food. So they are looting stores themselves just to try to survive. So it's kind of become a every man for himself scenario. It's just an absolute mess of a disaster, right?
Yeah, and just yesterday we had a situation when a Russian soldier he left alone from his whole battalion or squad, I don't know. He drove on his tank by himself to our army positions, and he just gave up.
Wow.
So that's what you need to know about Russian army right now. They're demotivated. They don't know what they are fighting for. They leave their positions. They leave towards north border with Russia. So they just flee their positions, you know.
And there are rumors that they are sending in squads of I don't know what kind of soldiers who shoot the deserters, because there are so many deserters. And there were pictures in the American television that the Ukrainians gave the deserters, they gave them tea and soup and that they tried to accept them and not kill them or anything like that.
Karm, I have my faith in humanity is restored because my lovely wife, Ileana Diaz, is watching and has a comment. How much longer do Boris and Oksana plan to stay sheltered in place? Have you considered trying to leave like others? Now, this is something we sort of addressed, but since I have 3 young kids, I will chalk it up to the fact that my wife was chasing the 3 young kids. But again, Boris and Oksana, if all hell breaks loose, for now you're staying, but if you start getting the air raid sirens and things get kind of out of control, you're going to take off. Is that right?
I think Kyiv being the capital, I think I'm not a witch, and I'm not I cannot predict the future, but I think that as his last gesture of revenge, I think he will try to bombard Kyiv before he withdraws. That's Putin, and I think he will. He must be in a state of permanent rage.
Karm, you really know how to make our guests feel at ease.
No, I don't want you to feel at ease. I want you to get out of there.
What are there plans to leave right now, or only if things get much worse?
Take this one.
I don't know, actually, because starting maybe from the second day of the war, I was asking my husband, like, let's relocate somewhere, let's go somewhere. But, every day it's like becoming more and more complicated for us to move due to like many reasons. The first reason, maybe it's just the place to stay in, because we have 2 pets, and these pets, they like our children, like our kids, we treat them like the gods. Yeah, and they not like we cannot stay in just I don't know, the sport hall as the refugees with these pets, so we need some corner to stay with them. And nowadays it's becoming more and more complicated to find even a room.
You have a car, and 300 kilometers is a 1-day trip.
Yeah, that's right. The Boris's parents, they can host us for some period of time.
So far you have been right about staying, okay? But I'm just very worried about what will happen once Putin really realizes that he's really losing.
Carmella is she's sort of the commander-in-chief in her own mind. She is watching, and she's keeping tabs. So Boris and Oksana, she will let you know when it's time to go. She's monitoring everything.
Yeah, we understand this logic. We think of Putin as well. If he loses, he will try to bombard Kyiv, but he can't, because now we have
the air
defense systems, which has been given by US and Europe. So, and by this day, we have shot like 101 fighter jets, Russian fighter jets. Can you imagine? 100.
Wow.
Just immense amount of money wasted by Putin and his crew, which are still coming here. So
and helicopters.
Yes,
even more helicopters.
Even more helicopters. Yes. So if a fighter jet from Russia comes in Ukraine, they are only somewhere in the north, like Chernihiv, Sumy, and they are being shot there. So they don't go here. They can't go here physically because of this air defense system.
These are difficult questions, but do you fear things like chemical weapons or tactical nukes or anything along those lines?
Yeah, sure. We are just people. Sure, we do.
Well, couple of days ago, there was a situation when the ammonia something, a storage of ammonia broke down somewhere in Chernihiv or Sumy. I don't remember.
Sumy.
Yeah. So, and
the northeastern part of Ukraine, Chernihiv, the north, and this is like northeast Sumy.
So Russia, like they did this. They did use chemical weapons by bombing our storage of ammonia, and like.
I heard about there's ammonia leak, which is very
yeah, right. And you know that they captured actually Chernobyl, yeah, the station, and they keep people, the staff, they work shifts, and they cannot, the second shift cannot like come there and cannot change the first shift. So people, like they took hostage, I can say so, and it's really dangerous too.
I still remember before you were born, the winds were blowing towards Europe. I have a sister who she spends time in Budapest, so I remember it was a very bad scene with the radiation.
One of the crazy side stories here is, in speaking to Oksana and Boris last time, I found out they had COVID right before the war. They were in quarantine, I think, until February 22nd. Boris he's a captain of a major Ukrainian airline. I think you said you flew to Barcelona on the 23rd, and then on the 24th, the war broke out. So you literally went directly from having COVID and being quarantined to being quarantined because of the war. So, I mean, I would not be doing very well mentally. I'm going through a stomach bug today, and I'm having a hard time. So I can't really imagine.
American boys are very spoiled.
Yeah, we're not the toughest guys. But I mean, mentally, what are you telling yourselves to kind of stay calm and carry on, as they say?
That was the English. The English were using when they were bombarded London. When London was bombarded during World War II, they had stay calm and carry on. That was the slogan. Stay calm and carry on.
But how are you doing mentally?
Well, I am optimistic all the time because I just see things that are happening. I see that Russians are losing and losing hard. So I'm really, really optimistic about this. I cannot say how much longer this will going to happen. But anyway, I think things will be fine. How do you think?
Boris, what's it like for you? I mean, you're an airline captain, and I mean, for the foreseeable future, you're not working. How discouraging is that?
Yeah, it's quite discouraging. I'm now looking for an options to find any job here, but it's futile for now.
Are there people working? I mean, are people going out and working?
They are, like delivery guys, drivers, janitors, like salesmen, accountants, like this.
Guys.
Yeah.
And I remember I asked you because there is a mandatory reserve draft. Like, you're not allowed to leave the country between, I think, ages 18 and 60 or something. Yeah. You haven't been called up, but you said you would go down fighting for your country.
Yeah, correct. I cannot leave. And right now there are so many willing people to join the army. Like officials say that we have 6 men per 1 gun. So, and to my friends who go to this authority which drafts people, they are being denied because there are so many people in army right now. They don't need men right now.
Conscription office.
Yeah.
We have another comment here from Anna, the lovely Anna. how have you and your nearby community come together during this time to help each other? How are you guys helping each other, your neighbors and so forth?
We are just in contact with our neighbors. We share news. We just visit each other, comfort each other, because a lot of people, they left. And for example, the guys, they organized some chat on the messenger, and they like exchange, like my husband and men from our house, they exchange news, and they used to have some like they at night, I mean, they, what did you do, like
we did some shifts at night to protect our whole house from like people who want to come in and break things, steal things, like
from looting.
Yeah.
There's looting going on. There's looting.
Some, not much, but some, yeah.
And do you have friends within your building there? Can you walk down a floor or walk up a floor and spend time with people?
Yeah, right. We communicate, we talk, we share food, something like that.
Nice. And so now President Biden just landed a short time ago. I think he's in Brussels. Am I right about that?
I don't know.
He's in Brussels. Yeah, he must be.
And do you have hope? He's meeting with NATO leaders. What would you like to see come out of these meetings? I think he's got 3 days worth of meetings.
I think we will see some great unification of NATO, which has already happened, but perhaps it will come as a front to stop this threat which is coming from Russia, like some serious stuff, like more sanctions, maybe some steps to mitigate this threat as quick as possible.
What do you think is going on in the minds of these Russian soldiers? Carmella was telling me that Putin has sent in basically kill teams for the guys who have, what's the word I'm looking for? Like who
deserted.
Deserters. Putin is sending in kill teams for the Russian soldiers who have deserted. Do you think that they feel, many of them, like they were duped into this?
Some of them do, but some, I think, they like it, because there were intercepted phone calls when Russian soldiers broke into people's homes, and they killed the man. They
raped.
Yes, they raped women, and they just stole the stuff. And they were calling their wives to tell how much stuff they stole. And their wives, they were okay about this, So, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the CSI, it's in the United States, and we have the Security Service of Ukraine. On their official website, their official page, you can find some intercepted phone calls where they call their wives or girlfriends or friends, and they let us hear, listen for 2 or 3 minutes of the calls, and sometimes it's really scary, because some people, they are shocked, and some people, they are enjoying the thing.
I didn't follow that. You're listening to some intercepted phone conversations?
Yes.
And that's being played in the news, you're saying?
No, not the news. The Security Service of Ukraine. This is the something like you have CSI.
But it was on the news also as well.
I don't know.
So some are doing it willingly and enjoying it. Others are basically saying, "What did I get? Or, what do you get us into?"
Right.
Yeah, it's correct. And so we are able to intercept their calls because they steal the mobile phones from our people, and it's our numbers. So our Secret Service, they can intercept these calls and track them and listen to them.
Karm, if you were living in Kyiv right now, what would you do? Would you leave? Would you stay? Would you take up arms? Serious, not the arms.
I can understand why they stayed. If I were in Kyiv and I were Ukrainian, I would probably stay.
You would stay?
Yes. I would probably
And think
say,
about it. You know,
I ran away already enough. I wouldn't run away. I mean, at 82.
It also gets hard. You know, you don't think about. Heard about a lot of kids who are infirmed, who are sick, who have illnesses. But for example, my father is 88 and in a wheelchair, so my mother couldn't just roll him down the street. You know, it gets much more difficult. So people are trapped in these horrendous situations. We have
no. This is the most absurd, insane event of the 21st century. No matter what else happens from now on, this is the most insane. After what Europe went through, to do this act of destruction.
Not to mention now there's a new wave of Omicron kind of running through Europe a little bit. It's just absolutely exhausting, this whole cycle. We've got another message here from a gentleman named Birkin Alper Ozer. I don't know Ukrainian, but maybe he's Ukrainian.
He's Turkish. It's Turkish.
Turkish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Americans are horrible. I speak one language, English. My mother speaks 6 languages.
Wow.
I speak like very elementary Turkish, just a few words.
You do?
But
Oksana, you're smart. I'm not.
It's not a question of smart. It's a question of necessity.
But let's get to Birkin's comment here. Are your basic communication networks active? I've read in the news that systems such as Starlink are free and available for use. Do you have alternatives other than that? So for those who don't know, Starlink, I happen to know
this
Elon Musk. He basically sent in these sort of portable satellites for internet service, but that's a great question. Do you have easy access to communication networks?
Right now, we do have easy access, yes. If the city is free from fighting, so all the basic stuff like communications, networks, cellular, they're all running. But if the city is being bombarded like Kharkiv or Chernihiv,
it is cut off.
It is cut off, yeah. So if the fight comes here, so we could be cut off from basic communication. And this Starlink stuff from Elon Musk, it's only available for the military people right now.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Karm, I mean, there's some comparisons to be made, but I remember you telling me the story that your father was an optometrist in Subotica, Yugoslavia, and my grandmother, your mother, was becoming increasingly worried that stuff would happen, and your father, ever the optimist, like Boris, said they will never come, and the Nazis did come. Talking to the mic, Karm.
Boris, I am also an optimist, a fellow optimist, but
she's an optimist that likes to yell.
But it has nothing to do with optimism. But I have a saying, and my saying is no fun. I have a saying that says, optimism kills. Kills. Because sometimes when you think that everything will work out like my father did, he studied in Germany before Second World War, studied to chisel eyeglasses, the lenses.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Germans started to do terrible things to the Jews, he said, no, they are a civilized people. They have culture, they're civilized. The end of the story was that he was gassed in Auschwitz. Now, God forbid even something remotely as bad could happen. But my mother, who was less of an optimist, she through relatives in Budapest, she got false documents, with false names that we are not Jewish, we are Christians. And we were going to go with these false documents up to Budapest, which was a big city compared to the small town where we live, which is like 100,000 people, and everybody knew us. So we were going to go up there, and my father said, no, you can't take the child, meaning me. I was like 5. And he said, no, you can't take her because I trust the Germans. They are a civilized people. Then the morning they came to take us to the trains, he said to my mother, whose name is Vera, he said, Vera, do something. So I feel, you know what happened? Another story that's unrelated. when the 3 Mile Island nearly exploded in the United States, a nuclear.
Yeah, that's before their time. There was a nuclear plant that leaked and caused a lot of problems back in the 1970s.
Pretty close to where we lived. I was all ready to go. I was literally, my American friends looked at me, oh, this idiot, what is she? As it turned out, they stopped it, it didn't leak, but I was ready to go. So my mentality is survival is the most important thing in my book, survival.
Maybe that's why I became negative. It was a defense mechanism.
To my positivity.
So when my mother said optimism kills, it reminds me of something that I say kind of half jokingly, which is social media kills, because it's become so poisonous, if you will. And, but on the other hand, do you think, Boris or Oksana, that they say that the older generation of Russians living in Russia are immutable, that you can't change their minds, they buy everything Putin says, but the younger generation, thanks to social media, they can see through Putin. Do you think that social media has helped the Ukrainians in this war in terms of tactically allowing so much information to be disseminated and exposing the realities?
Yes, social media has definitely helped to fight against propaganda. Before the Instagram and Facebook were prohibited in Russia, like they prohibited like a few days ago, we could send some photos and messages and try to convince Russian people what is going on here. Not every Russian believed us. Actually, like 90% didn't believe us. Only very, very small amount of people know what's going on. Because of total.
How will the Russian government let the Russian people know how many Russian soldiers were killed?
No,
definitely no. On the second week of the war, Russian officials told Russian people that there were no casualties on the Russian side. Mm-hmm. And by the time there were like 7,000 dead Russian soldiers, And on the third week of war, they told them that like there are 500. Like 500 casualties, yeah. And there were like 10,000. Mm-hmm. So there's a total blockade of information on Russia. You just cannot access anything. You have only the TV, and the TV is filled with propaganda.
The moral of the story is don't trust your government, either in Russia or America. Ukraine, maybe.
The moral of the story, be paranoid like Carmella.
Last question for you. What do you think of the job that Zelenskyy has been doing this whole time?
Do you want to take this one?
You can both chime in.
I think that not just Zelenskyy, but the government, they have become really united. Yeah, and they are doing their best, the best that they could do in this situation. Maybe I'm not an expert, I'm not a politician and not a military expert, but I think maybe they make some minor mistakes, but so far. And they are doing Zelenskyy is now compared to Churchill, it seems to me, Churchill, because the speeches that he's making, they are very, very like deep and thoughtful, and I really like them.
Was he popular prior to this? He was an actor, but did you know him from the TV show?
Yeah, I have a picture because I worked as a flight attendant for some period of time, for 1 year. And I have a picture with Zelenskyy, like being a flight attendant. And he was I remember him just as a passenger of the business class. He was very modest and he just asked for some glass of tomato juice. And we like flight attendants, they have a tradition to make a photo, take a picture with some celebrities on board. So we asked him for a picture and he, okay, good. And he was just a calm person. I was not like a fan of his movies or something. Just I faced him just like that in real life. But now he's very popular here. That's true.
Nice. We have a comment from my lovely niece. It's good to know that people are watching. Rocky Fussman. She says, or is asking, how can we help Ukrainian refugees and show support to those still in Ukraine? Is there something Americans can do specifically for you guys in Ukraine right now?
Well, Americans have been doing a lot. We cannot ask for more. Like all my friends who are American, they are trying to shout out and to reach every Russian they know on social media to bring out this information of what is happening here.
By the way, Boris would never ask Zelenskyy for a photo. A captain never would ask. He would not. He wouldn't stoop to that level.
Because he is the captain.
He is the captain. Karm, I heard it. One last question.
No, usually when he says to me, "You can ask one last question," I go on for an hour. I go and talk and talk and talk. I just want to wish you. I want to bless you to be well, and I want you to be safe, and I want this to end as soon as possible, and hopefully we can talk to you in peacetime again.
Carmella was at her building in Miami Beach, and someone, oh, there it is, you and Zelenskyy.
Yeah.
Look at you, looking good as a flight attendant. So Carmella lives in a building in Miami Beach.
It's not funny.
Someone came up to her and they said that it is to be blessed by a Holocaust survivor is like a very holy thing. So
I never heard that ever before in 82 years. It's just my daughter was visiting from New Jersey and we were sitting around and suddenly this woman says, "I heard you are a survivor. Could you give me a blessing?" And I just said, "What?" She says, "You didn't know? I'm going to take your blessing." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to give you a blessing." But I meant when I said I give you a blessing, I wish you really all the best and a long, healthy life and all the good stuff.
Thank you so much. You're blessed by a Holocaust survivor. Boris and Oksana, this is not the last time we speak. We'll talk again. I'll stay in touch and hopefully we will get better news. And then like Carmella said, once this is over, we'll do another podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If there's anything you do need, please let us know.
Yeah, let us know. We will try our best. We're going to talk to the people at the Ukrainian church now.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Okay. So thank you so much.
To raise funds and so forth.
God bless you. We'll be in touch.
Thanks.
And right on cue, Karm. We're not going to talk to anyone, but we have a graphic that we're going to put up here. We are working with a Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Cooper City, Florida. It's called the St. Nicholas Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and you can get in contact with them. They are in Cooper City, Florida. There it is. You're looking at it.
St. Nicholas Ukrainian.
Father Eugene. Look at that church. It's cool looking. It's at 5031 Southwest 100th Avenue, Cooper City, Florida, 33328. Again, 5031 Southwest 100th Avenue, Cooper City, Florida, 33328. And you can contact them.
They collect clothes,
food, I believe, canned food, and they get it over. And one of the things.
What about drugs, medication?
Marijuana or like
no
medical?
Medication.
I think they do that too.
And the priest would love to hear from people.
Karm, I want to plug us as well. If you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Surviving the Survivor. How do you like our first live episode?
I'm not so sure it will come out live.
I survived, by the way. I wasn't sure I was going to survive, but I did survive. I survived the Survivor and I survived the stomach.
Such a competitive survivor.
Love you, America. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back for another live episode soon enough.
Peace on earth.